So guys, you know the situation at cornerback going into this offseason. Joey Porter Jr. is your CB1, but he's been dealing with contract stuff and limiting his reps in camp, and that leaves a real void on the outside with nobody proven behind him. And instead of that spot just sitting empty during OTAs, a rookie stepped in and made a reporter from ESPN take notice. I'm going to break down exactly what he did, why I think his long-term future on this defense might not even be at the position everybody assumes, and what that means for this secondary going forward. What's up, Steelers fans? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. So the name we're talking about here is Daylen Everette, a third-round pick out of Georgia, and from what's coming out of the South Side this offseason, he was all over the field during OTAs. He was going up against DK Metcalf in one-on-ones and actually holding his ground, getting his hands on balls, not looking like a guy who's overwhelmed by the jump to the NFL. And look, when you take a corner in the third round, that's not a guy you're bringing in as camp depth. You're taking him because you see a starter somewhere down the line. So the fact that he's already flashing this early, with Porter kind of pulling back because of the contract situation, that's exactly the kind of opportunity a rookie needs to get on the coaching staff's radar. Now, here's where I want to get into my actual opinion on this guy, because I think everybody's assuming Everette is just the heir apparent to play outside corner opposite Joey Porter Jr. And honestly, I'm not all the way there yet. I think his best long-term fit in this defense is actually inside, either at that big nickel spot or even at safety. And I know that might sound like a weird take for a guy who was drafted to play corner, but hear me out on this. First off, he's built different than your typical outside corner. He's a bigger frame, long arms, really physical player. And one of the things that stands out most about his tape, and now his early practice reports, is how well he tackles. That's not something you see every day from a rookie corner. Guys coming out of college, a lot of times, tackling is the last thing they clean up. But with him, it's already one of his strongest traits. And when I see a corner who's got that kind of physicality and length, my mind immediately goes to, okay, this guy might be better suited playing closer to the line of scrimmage, in the slot, in that hybrid role where he's reading the quarterback and squaring up on running backs and tight ends instead of turning and running with the receiver 20 yards downfield. And that leads me to the safety conversation, because I think this is honestly the more interesting long-term projection for him. Jaquan Brisker is only on a one-year deal right now. There's no long-term answer locked in at that other safety spot next to Deshaun Elliott. So if you're Pittsburgh and you've got a young corner who's already shown he can play physical, tackle well, and has the length to match up in that quarters-heavy, too-high safety look this staff likes to run, why wouldn't you at least explore moving him back there down the road? I think he'd thrive in that role. I think it plays to literally every strength in his game, the physicality, the ball skills, the length. Now, on the flip side, when it comes to actually playing corner in man coverage, I do have some concerns, and I'll be honest with you guys about it. I think he's got a little bit of tightness in his hips, a little bit of heaviness in his feet, and it's not a coincidence that he skipped the agility testing at the combine this year. When you see a guy avoid certain drills, that usually tells you something about where the concerns are. Against the guy running a straight go route down the sideline or a simple post, sure, he's got the speed and the length to make that work. But against route runners who can actually separate with quickness, who can sit down on a route and create space, I think that's where he could get exposed if they leave him out there in true man coverage on an every down basis. But look, I want to be fair here too, because it's still very early. We're talking about OTAs, no pads, nobody's really hitting anybody. So if this kid comes out to Latrobe, puts the pads on, and proves in training camp and the preseason that he can hold up on the outside as a legitimate CB2 across from Porter, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that's a bad thing. That would honestly be the best case scenario for this defense, because then you got a true CB1 and CB2 duo, and you can keep your safety room as is. I just think realistically, when I watch how he's built and how he plays, I see a guy whose ceiling might actually be higher inside than outside. And I think this is something Steelers fans need to keep an eye on all offseason, because it's going to shape how this secondary looks not just this year, but 2-3 years down the road.
If Everette locks down that outside corner spot, great, that's one less thing to worry about. But if he ends up sliding inside to nickel or even safety, that changes the whole timeline for Jalen Ramsey too. Because remember, Ramsey's not getting any younger at that big nickel role, and eventually Pittsburgh's going to need a succession plan there as well. So in a weird way, what happens with this one rookie could end up affecting 2 or 3 different spots on the back end of this defense. I also want to touch on something else here because I think it says a lot about how this coaching staff operates. The fact that they're already trusting a rookie with real reps during a period where a starter is holding out reps for a new deal, that tells you they believe in what they saw on tape when they drafted him. They're not just throwing him out there to fill space. They clearly like something about his game enough to let him compete for real snaps this early, and that's usually a good sign for a rookie's trajectory. Guys who earn trust in OTAs typically carry that momentum right into training camp, and then that competition just keeps building all the way up until final roster cuts.
Now, I do want to hear from you guys on this because I think this is a genuinely split opinion type of topic. Drop a comment down below and let me know. Do you think Daylen Everette ends up locking down that outside corner job for the long haul, or do you agree with me that his future is actually inside, whether that's at nickel or even safety? I'm curious to see where the fan base lands on this one, because I know a lot of you have strong opinions on this secondary. The other piece I keep coming back to is just how much depth this creates for Pittsburgh at a position that's honestly been a little thin the last couple years outside of Porter. If Everette can play multiple spots, corner, nickel, safety, that kind of versatility is exactly what this coaching staff loves. It gives them flexibility on game day to move pieces around based on matchups, and it gives them a safety net if injuries hit, which, let's be real, they always do at some point during a season. So even if he doesn't end up being a clean, obvious starter at one single position right away, having a guy who can slide around and hold his own in multiple spots, that's real value on this roster. And I think that's honestly the story to watch coming out of these OTAs. It's not just about whether Everette beats out somebody for a starting job in year 1, it's about what kind of long-term piece he becomes for this defense. Porter's gonna get his deal eventually, that's not really in question. But the more Everette shows he can do multiple things well, the more optionality this staff has moving forward, whether that's at corner, nickel, or safety. And for a defense that's built its identity around being physical and disciplined, having another young guy who fits that mold is genuinely a good problem to have. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this one. If you're a diehard Steelers fan like me, make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss any of these breakdowns as we head deeper into training camp. Drop your take in the comments. I read every single one of them, and I'll catch you in the next video. Here we go, Steelers!